What's up, guys? So today we got a question from Bob, a Bob question rather, right? If you guys, or if you're new to the channel, Bob question means that the guy has a question where he wants to be anonymous. So the Bob question today comes from a 22-year-old blue belt who wrestled since he was 11 years old. So he's got a strong wrestling base. And he says recently in their gym they did promotions. And he thought that he was on the, for sure thought he was on the chopping block to get his purple. But he didn't get it. Now he says that kind of bothers him a little bit because he's like, man, I've been placing in every single tournament that I've ever done, right? Top 3, been on the podium every single time he's competed. And he says in the gym when he competes against guys that just got their purple belt, he beats them, right? So he's able to beat them, and so he's not sure what gives. He says that one of the things his coach says to him is that, you know, he relies too much on his wrestling and his explosive power to be successful. And so, you know, I sort of took that as, because I've heard that kind of stuff before. And I asked him, I said, well, okay, what kind of guard positions do you play? Because obviously if he's a wrestling background, that's going to be a part that you're resistant towards, right? So as a wrestler, how have you transitioned into jiu-jitsu with your bottom game? What does it look like? He says that he will not play bottom, right, against higher belts, like guys that are tough. And he says that when he uses it against some of the guys that, you know, he thinks he can beat, as soon as he's tested, he just kind of like bails on it and goes back to his wrestling. And so, brother, thank you for the question. This is a good one. So I feel a connection to you because I kind of came in the same situation as you, where I came from a wrestling background, not quite as extensive as yours, but I came from a wrestling background. And when I got into jiu-jitsu, I was always in this mindset of win, win, win. It was always win. Whether it was a competition, whether it was rolling, I felt like I always had to win. The problem with that is that when you're in a win mindset, that kind of mindset, you're not able to like play around with different stuff. You're like laser sight focused on whatever's going to work the best, right? Your A game. And so for me, I was in that situation where I'm using my A game every single day in the gym. When I would compete, I would do well using my A game. But eventually I got to the situation where I was a purple belt, and at purple belt especially, these guys are starting to get this game where it's really deep and it has a lot of complexity to it, where mine did not. I was doing essentially the same stuff I've been doing as white belt, for better, for worse, just with some, you know, extras along the way. But it's essentially the same game. So I get to purple belt and I start getting chewed up. My game just starts unraveling in front of my eyes because I don't have the technical ability to hang with these guys. If I could maybe get them to play my game, I was okay. Sometimes in no-gi, I could kind of just grind into people and slip out of stuff. But man, I would go against guys multiple times in jiu-jitsu competitions where they would just chew me up, right? And so it was frustrating. And it wasn't until a conversation happened where one of my two of my coaches said, listen, man, you have to let go of this mentality that you have to win. You have to start playing around with stuff, right? So here's kind of getting into it. I'm sort of setting the stage for you, because here's what I expect from my blue belts, okay? And again, you need to talk to your coach, because again, you need to get them to lay it out for you. I know there's a lot of ambiguity with jiu-jitsu belts sometimes, because it's like, is it me being able to beat people? Is it time on the mats? Is it technical knowledge? What is it that I get promoted on? Ask them, find that out from them, you know, for sure. But when I'm looking at blue belts, here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for them to sample the buffet line, as I've said before in other videos. And the reason being is I don't want them to end up like me as a purple belt, where I'm frustrated and my game really lacks technical complexity. I'm basically just getting chewed up because I never got pulled out of doing the same old stuff. And it's my job as a coach to make sure they try new stuff, right? It's like, look, you know, you can be winning all the tournaments you want to, but you're just doing the same stuff. Let me see you do something else. I need you to see you opening up your game, because that's going to set that next level foundation, right? You set the basics as a white belt, right? Well, as a higher level belt, you got to set another foundation that you can play up on that level, right? And so as a white belt, the way that I see it, if you want to use an analogy, you get your plate, right? You set the basic foundation of jiu-jitsu and you get your plate and you make your way up to the line. As a blue belt, we're now looking at the buffet line and now we're sampling stuff. We're trying stuff out, right? Let's see if this works. I don't like this. Don't want that anymore. I want more of this. Kind of going through that whole process, right? And what that does is that allows you to figure out what's going to work for you. Because for you, Bob, I almost said your name, Bob, you might have the best position. It literally, the best position for you ever could be right under your nose, but because you don't want to test it because you're afraid to lose, and I can kind of get it, I understand, but because you don't want to really test it and see if it works, you're never going to know, right? Like say, for instance, half guard. Half guard might be your best position ever, but you won't know unless you really try it. And when I mean try it, I mean like ride that position out. So when you roll and you try to use something new, you can't simply like give it a little try, and as soon as things get a little hairy, you quit. You got to really own that position and just sort of die with it. So if you're trying your half guard or trying a butterfly guard or trying, you know, full guard, whatever guard position you decide to go towards, if you start getting crushed, you get crushed. It's all right, right? You get crushed because, again, sometimes with anything, you got to go down into the valley before you can go up on the mountain, right? And the failures and getting crushed and getting smashed on the mat, right? That's simply the currency that you pay for this new, that you're going to use to pay for this new game that you're going to have, this new well-rounded game, right? This game that's going to have a deeper complexity to it, that'll have more options for you. And I can tell you that both as a top player, it's good to know what they're doing on the bottom, so I have better knowledge on how to defend it, and also, there's been plenty of times where I'll go into a competition and strategically I look at the situation and I say, you know what? I could take this guy down, but man, it's going to wear me out to do it. I'm going to be more efficient, I think, that's my thought, right? More efficient from my bottom, so I'm going to pull half guard or I'm going to pull full guard or whatever I'm going to pull, and I'm going to work from there. And a lot of times that's been really beneficial to me because it allows me to have other options besides just one thing over and over again, which again is fine, but again, I like to get guys to try new stuff, and I like to be able to play different options and things like that. The last thing, or it's not even the last thing, I have a bunch of stuff I want to tell you first, but one of the other things I want to say is that this is jiu-jitsu. It's not wrestling, right? There's more to it than just takedowns and being explosive and being on top. The bottom game is a huge component of it, and you got to be able to play it. And it may not be comfortable at first, but I promise you, if you give it a fair shake, it will become comfortable. Now, here would be my advice, and this is the things that have gotten done to me, right? As coaches, we have to do this from time to time to our students, but sometimes if you don't have the direct coaching, maybe because the gym's big or whatever, you can take it upon yourself. I would pick out a guard position if I was you, and I would do it for no less than 30 days, no less than a month, right? And the reason I say that is because a lot of times when something's frustrating, people will try it a little bit, but as soon as it doesn't work, they just kind of I don't want to do it anymore, right? But when it comes to jiu-jitsu, it takes a little bit of time. It's kind of like weightlifting. You can't simply you can't go into the gym, do a couple curls and expect your bicep to grow, right? It's going to take a while before those suckers grow. And a lot of times with jiu-jitsu, it's the same way, right? When you first start doing a particular position, especially if it's new to you, it's not going to happen instantly. It's going to take a little bit of time for that position to stick. But there's this beauty when you do it for a little while, right? 4 to 6 weeks, you start to notice that, oh man, I'm getting better at this position, right? And it happens because, remember, we're not in jiu-jitsu, we're not simply learning stuff, right? It's more than that, right? It's not simply just being able to tell you what the technique is or be able to show you in a situation. It's being able to use it in live situations, and that only happens after your body really absorbs that information, right? It has to like sort of wire it in its nervous system, and that takes time. That's not an instant thing. So I would say no less than 30 days, hang on that guard position of your choosing, right? The second thing I would say is think about using half guard. The reason I say half guard is there's a lot of ways to use half guard in a very technical way, right? Very fluid way that blend really well with wrestling. Speak from experience, right? There's ways to sort of combine your wrestling with single legs, or excuse me, your half guard with single legs and double legs, things like that. And if you want to try to play around some half guard, I've got some good half guard videos on my channel. I'll link them at the end of this video. If you start liking half guard, I've got a great video series that I did on my website you can check out if you're interested, but the ones on YouTube should get you started if you want to play around with that position. And so I think that's it, man. Talk to your coach, see what they expect. And then pick a guard position. Really own it. Remember, you're doing jiu-jitsu. It's a whole thing. This grappling thing is going to be everything. And you never know. You may not be taken down. Maybe you're the best wrestler in the world. I don't think you are, right? Because, again, you're not in the Olympics, but you're probably a pretty good wrestler. But there's probably going to be a situation where some guy's going to sweep you, and he's going to put you on your back, and you're going to need to be able to play from there. And it's good to know how to do that. So start working on your guard position. Really own it and give it a fair shake. And then, like I said, maybe steer towards half guard. Give it a try. So, Bob, thank you so much for the question, brother. And guys, I'll talk to you next time.